You helped build a powerful, progressive, Jewish-Muslim coalition that successfully rallied New Yorkers. Did you ever think at that time that your next move would be outside of New York City politics, in national politics?
We've got to keep the fight against Trump, against fascism, against the abduction of our neighbors.
Last time I spoke to you on this show, that's what we all thought, that Brad Lander was going to be deputy mayor.
Zoran and I are strong political allies.
How do you actually plan to go up against Dan Goldman, who has AIPAC on his side, presumably?
A few people have said, you look like Mr. Rogers, but who fights ICE and AIPAC. But if you love your neighbors and then ICE agents come and abduct them, you don't just sing a song, you show up fierce and fight back.
We know that Dan Goldman is a reliably pro-Israel vote in the House. How else would you vote differently to him?
I would support recognizing Palestine. Israelis are only going to be safe and free when Palestinians are free and safe.
Do you believe Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are the right leaders right now to fight back against Donald Trump and these extremist Republicans? Most of you know him from his New York City.
What we're getting into. Brad Lander versus Dan Goldman. Trump, Gaza, antisemitism, power, hypocrisy. This clip features Brad Lander, New York City comptroller, officially launching his primary challenge against Dan Goldman for NY10, with Mehdi Hasan guiding the conversation. Lander presents himself as the progressive fighter, the anti-AIPAC, pro-Palestinian alternative, while accusing Trump, Cuomo, and centrist Democrats of weaponizing anti-Semitism to crush dissent. But once you strip away the Mr. Rogers tone, progressive buzzwords, and moral framing, some serious contradictions start to show. This breakdown calls out what Lander gets right, where he dodges, and who's actually winning this exchange. Spoiler, Mehdi presses hard, but lets Lander off the hook when it matters most.
Mayoral run, and then having joined forces with Zoran Mamdani to save the city from Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo. But by this time next year, you might come to know him as the man who successfully unseated pro-Israel and very centrist House Democrat Dan Goldman. Yes, I'm talking about none other than Brad Lander, the New York City comptroller, who just launched his congressional primary bid in New York's 10th district. And he joins me now. Brad, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Mehdi. Great to be with you.
After Zoran Mamdani won the mayoral primary, you made the decision to end your campaign and rally behind him to defeat Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo. You helped build a powerful, progressive, Jewish-Muslim coalition that successfully rallied New Yorkers to elect Mamdani as the next mayor. Did you ever think at that time that your next move would be outside of New York City politics, in national politics?
I did begin thinking about the run for Congress in the spring, as it was clear to me I wasn't going to be New York City's next mayor, because we've got to keep the fight against Trump, against fascism, against the abduction of our neighbors.
This is where Lander locks in the moral framing. Notice how every political disagreement becomes existential. Trump isn't just wrong, he's fascism itself. ICE isn't policy, it's abduction. That language energizes the base, but it also removes nuance, making anyone who disagrees automatically complicit in evil. It's effective and manipulative.
And for an economy rigged against working people everywhere, I wanted to do that at City Hall. There was so much goodwill as we were beating Andrew Cuomo, and it was clear that Zoran was going to win. I took a little time to think about it and didn't want to make the decision until after the general election. I've cared a lot about Congress for a long time, and I think it's an important place to be standing up and fighting.
There has been a lot of reporting, including from the New York Times, that says the idea to primary Rep. Goldman actually came from Zoran Mamdani himself. Is that true? And if so, what was the conversation like?
The mayor-elect has been supporting me in this race, and I'm thrilled to have his support. We had a lot of conversations. For a while, we were running against each other and talked about what ideas would be better to govern the city with. Once we cross-endorsed, we were out there together. And then after he won the primary, we continued those conversations. I was thinking about a range of ways that I might help serve the city. Had some conversations with him about doing that at City Hall in some way as part of his team. But we both were interested in the possibility of changing the congressional leadership of New York's 10th congressional district. We've got someone there now in Dan Goldman who didn't endorse Zoran even in the general election after he was already the Democratic nominee, and who in other ways is out of step with the progressive values of the district and with New Yorkers' desire for somebody who's going to really lead organized fight in this time. As we had, the idea did not come from Zoran, but he was enthusiastic about it, and I'm really honored to have his support in the race.
According to the news site Gothamist, Brad, you assumed your alliance with Zoran Mamdani would land you a spot as his first deputy mayor. According to their reporting, the bromance wasn't all what it seemed, and the Mamdani campaign apparently felt like you were getting ahead of yourself. Is that ultimately why you weren't chosen as his deputy mayor? Last time I spoke to you on this show, that's what we all thought, that Brad Lander was going to be deputy mayor.
I mean, there's a lot of gossip during transitions. That's one thing I've learned. I never had an assumption about anything. Look, Zoran and I are strong political allies. Obviously, for a while, we were rivals in the mayor's race. Then we cross-endorsed in order to defeat Andrew Cuomo. I was really proud then to campaign for him all the way down the stretch in the general election. I never told one single person I thought I had a job in the administration or would be first deputy mayor or anything else. What I said is, this is an exciting time in New York City, and I want to find the right way to serve and be part of it in partnership with Zoran and our mayor-elect. There were a lot of conversations. Some people would say, Brad, run for Congress. Some people would say, we hope you'll be at City Hall. I would always try to say, let's keep our eyes on the prize. Let's make sure Zoran wins in November. Let's organize together to stand up to Trump. Have you been down to 26 Federal Plaza yet to accompany neighbors? You know, what I found, normal people who are not politicians, play team sports all the time. And you might try out for shortstop, but the coach says, somebody else is going to be shortstop. Would you play second base or right field? And you don't pack up your marbles and go home. You say, what's the best spot for me? And that's how I tried to approach this.
Mainstream outlets love to pretend that they're just reporting the facts, but every headline has bias. That's why I built Zeteo, to cut through the performative neutrality. But I'm not the only one pushing for a better media. With Ground News, you're in control. Ground News brings together over 50,000 plus sources to show you the full picture. Just click on a story and you'll see ownership, track record, and factual records. Take this story about Senator John Fetterman calling the recognition of a Palestinian state an absolute betrayal of Israel. One look and you'll see how each outlet frames his comments with a complete visual breakdown. Most people never recognize that their media isn't made for them. Don't let gatekeepers shape your worldview. Go to ground.news for 40% off the Vantage subscription. So on that note, last time round, Dan Goldman won his seat because in the crowded Democratic primary, the progressives split the anti-Goldman votes and he squeezed through the middle. It was Mondaire Jones and Yulia New and others. This time round, we know that two progressive politicians from New York, former Assemblywoman Yulia New and City Council member Alexa Aviles, were weighing their own primary challenges to Goldman, but have decided to not do that since you entered the race. Did you persuade them to not run? Did you pressure them not to run? How did that happen?
I'm very grateful to Councilmember Aviles and to former Assemblymember Yulene New that they have indicated that they will make it possible for there to be unity in the progressive lane in this race so that we can defeat Dan Goldman and have a Congress member who reflects the district. I've worked with both Alexa and Yulene for years. They're strong progressives. You know, we worked together on housing, on immigration, on workers' rights, been out in the streets many times together. So I was in conversation with both of them. They were in conversation with lots of other people, with their supporters and allies. I feel like I'm in the best position to unify the district and win the race. I was proud to enter it with the support of Zoran and Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and the Working Families Party, and really grateful that they are both making that unity possible, because that's what's going to be necessary to win.
And you do have endorsements from Zoran Mamdani, from Bernie Sanders, from Elizabeth Warren. You've come out swinging. In your announcement video, you also paid homage to the late, great Mr. Rogers, who preached this idea of love and care for your neighbors. You even sang his iconic tune at the end of the campaign video. We're not used to seeing this softer side of politicians in campaign ads, which are normally more aggressive. What made you want to echo Mr. Rogers, and do you think that message is going to resonate in 2026?
I've gotten great feedback on it. A few people have said, you look like Mr. Rogers, but who fights ICE and AIPAC. Empathy can be a superpower, but if you love your neighbors and then ICE agents come and abduct them, you show up and fight back. In the mayor's race, I think honestly, we were trying to project an image of me that looked tougher than maybe we thought New Yorkers thought I was. Running the city is a tough job. So we ran an ad of me crushing a Tesla, showing that I would fight back against Musk and Trump. And several people said to me, Brad, we see you down at 26 Federal Plaza standing up to ICE agents. We've seen you pass legislation that Uber fought, that McDonald's fought, that Seamless fought, that corporate landlords fought. You don't need to project toughness. Be who you are. If I learned anything from Zoran's campaign and what's working in politics right now, you got to be authentically who you are. Maybe that's who I am, like Mr. Rogers, but with a really strong backbone, willing to stand up and fight.
You mentioned the Zoran campaign, and I've interviewed a lot of people from the campaign, including his video team, who we had on the show not long ago. Are people from his campaign working on your campaign now?
They are, yes. Both the Fight Agency and Melted Solids, who were the big part of Zoran's video team, or the Fight Agency made that Mr. Rogers video. Melted Solids is working with us, getting people's attention. I spent the better part of a year and $8 million in the mayor's race, counting matching funds, trying mostly without success to get people's attention. Down the stretch, it took getting arrested, endorsing someone else for the office I was running for, and coming in a distant third, and now everyone wants a selfie. I'm trying to use this
you
team
need
to
more
bring
than money. You need more than selfies to get elected. Your team reported more than 2,000 donations on day one of your campaign, which is a pretty incredible feat. But how do you actually plan to go up against Dan Goldman, who has AIPAC on his side, presumably, is also rather conveniently an heir to the Levi Strauss fortune? We saw what AIPAC did to Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush last year. Do you think they're going to do that to you?
I think they probably will, yes. Running against a multimillionaire who could spend a lot of his own money and who was backed by an AIPAC-funded super PAC when he won the race against a split field of progressives 4 years ago. It won't surprise me if they do that, but I think voters are fed up with that. Voters don't want oligarchs. Oligarchies can cause an affordability crisis, but they should not be able to buy a seat in Congress. And especially now, 2+ years into Israel's genocide in Gaza, voters are tired of AIPAC playing in races. In this district in particular, it's got a strong progressive majority. It went for Zoran in the primary and the general election. I've got my work cut out. I do need to raise money to make sure I could get the message out. But the mayor's race, the things I've shown, these folks know me. I've been organizing in this district for 3 decades. I represented it in city council and as controller. And even before that, I worked for 15 years running 2 tenants' rights and affordable housing groups in the district. So I got a good base to build on, and I don't think super PACs lying about me will be why we lose.
So I'll come back to, you mentioned the Gaza genocide. I'll come to that in just a moment. But you recently told the New York Daily News about Dan Goldman, and I quote, "On Gaza, we have some disagreements, but the core rationale is because it's time for fighters, not folders." Now, a lot of Goldman supporters, and generally pundits, journalists, they were critical of you for that line. They say, whatever you think about Dan Goldman, he's well known for being a fighter against Donald Trump. He famously was the lead counsel in the first impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump.
I think people want bolder leadership and stronger fighters. And part of that is standing up to Trump, and not only with strongly worded letters or questions in the House of Representatives. Folks want leaders who are going to put their body on the line and go out and organize with their neighbors.
This is where Lander subtly redefines fighter to exclude Goldman. If you're not physically protesting, you don't count. That's a narrow, activist-centric definition of power, one that flatters Lander's brand while dismissing institutional leverage.
And actually, in part, the Gaza issue, I think, is what makes it hard for Dan Goldman to organize with his neighbors. It's not his instinct to go out and be in the community. Last weekend, there were 120 hands-off NYC events. I made as many of them as I could. Did not see him out doing the organizing work with neighbors. He had a district office on 9th Street in Brooklyn that kept getting protested over what was happening in Gaza. And he eventually closed the office down rather than build bridges with his own constituents. These things go together. Folks do. There is a meaningful disagreement on Israel and Palestine that we can talk more about between Dan Goldman and me. But if folks want a Democratic Party with a better foreign policy, with a vision of fighting authoritarians around the world, with a better economic policy. It's hard to project unrigging the system, confronting affordability issues when you've got a multimillionaire who has traded stocks while in Congress. And those are critical in how we fight Trump.
People on the left in the pro-Palestine movement appreciated the fact that you are a Jewish politician in New York who has taken a strong stand in criticizing the Israeli government, calling it what it is, a genocide in Gaza. You allied with Mamdani, you defended him from weaponized attacks of anti-Semitism. But some on the left are scrutinizing your handling of New York City's pension funds, as you know. A new report from New York Daily News revealed that under your watch, pension funds in New York increased their investments in Elbit Systems, which is Israel's largest weapons manufacturer. How do you respond to New Yorkers who object to their public pension funds being used, even if indirectly, to exacerbate a genocide in Gaza? You yourself call it a genocide.
For pension fund management, I've got a very clear fiduciary responsibility. That is the retirement savings of hundreds of thousands of teachers, firefighters, social workers, and school crossing guards. It's not my money. And therefore, you're not supposed to use it for your own political beliefs, whatever they are. You use it to protect the pensions. Prior controllers had invested in Israel bonds, even though they were not invested in any other country's foreign sovereign. I ended that practice, first controller to do that in New York City, or I think probably anywhere around the country. On the other hand, those funds are invested all across the world in all sectors. Unfortunately, defense contractors are a large part of the global economy. So those funds are invested by our asset managers in Boeing and Northrop Grumman and Elbit Systems.
But Brad, when you say your position is not to bring politics into public pension investments, correct me if I'm wrong, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, didn't you push to divest public pension funds from Russian securities? Isn't that a double standard?
This is the moment viewers should sit with. Lander wants moral clarity in Congress, but procedural neutrality when he had power. That contradiction doesn't disappear just because he promises to vote differently later.
After Russia's investment of Ukraine, the Russian stock market collapsed, taking the investment value down near zero. So it was entirely consistent with protecting the pension funds and trying to make sure the money's there to pay the retirement, to get as much as we could of it.
It was also politics, Brad. Surely you were also anti-Russia.
Those two things went together. What fiduciary duty means is you look and see what will protect the pensioners' money. And in that case, the financial interest of not letting it evaporate in the Russian stock market. And sure, the political position that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was hideous, but the controller's job is different from a Congress member's job. In Congress, I will support the Block the Bombs Act. I'll co-sponsor it. I'll vote for it. I don't want to see us paying for those 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on Gaza's schools and hospitals. But as controller, I have that fiduciary duty, and it would have taken the vote of 75 pension trustees and getting something, through a set of boards that we just did not see a path to make happen.
You actually preempted my next question, which is what would you do in Congress differently to Dan Goldman? You mentioned the Bombs Act. We had Congresswoman Delia Ramirez on this show. You said you would co-sponsor it with her. That would block offensive weapon sales to Israel, bunker-busting bombs, white phosphorus munitions. We know that Dan Goldman is a reliably pro-Israel vote in the House. How else would you vote differently to him in Congress? How else would you behave differently to him when it comes to Israel and the ongoing genocide, even post this supposed ceasefire?
Yeah, so I certainly would not have voted to censure Congressmember Rashida Tlaib for speaking up for human rights for Palestinians. And then recently, in recent days, Randy Fine, this hideous Republican Congressmember, is essentially calling for the expulsion of Muslims from the country. There should be a censure vote for that. And yet Dan Goldman has talked in the past about working with Randy Fine to fight anti-Semitism. But we're not going to fight anti-Semitism by proposing the expulsion of Muslims, where our safety is bound together. I would support recognizing Palestine. Israelis are only going to be safe and free when Palestinians are free and safe. That has to be finding ways to work together and insist on it. Probably most meaningfully is that Block the Bombs Act, because that's our foreign policy, and we should not be sending our dollars, our bombs into the destruction of Gaza.
You mentioned anti-Semitism. You are Jewish, of course. What was your reaction on Sunday to the horrific news out of Australia?
It's a frightening time. I was at public menorah lightings on Sunday night. I am every year. I light the menorah with my family in our window, and I go out to many public lightings, including with the Chabad organization, with whom I don't agree entirely politically, but I love lighting their big, bright menorahs. To watch people on that beach get slaughtered just for trying to celebrate the holiday is heartbreaking and scary. Jews around the world right now feel fear that by acting Jewish in public, you might be subject to something like that. Hanukkah, the whole point is to show that we're proud to be Jewish. I will say, watching Ahmed Al-Ahmed, that courageous 43-year-old Muslim father and businessman, show more courage than I think I've ever seen to tackle one of the gunmen, at least made clear the enemy is not Jews or Muslims or Christians. The enemy is violence and hate.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to do with our menorahs.
One of the most moving aspects of your mayoral campaign, as we mentioned earlier, was your relationship with Zoran Mamdani when you cross-endorsed. We saw a Jewish New Yorker and a Muslim New Yorker come together with a shared vision for peace. It was an inspiring message, not one we often see in American politics. Do you believe that vision, that message is under threat right now from people who want to weaponize hate and division in the wake of terror attacks like the one in Australia?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Closer to home, City Council member Vicky Palladino immediately put up a tweet literally calling for the expulsion of Muslims from the United States. Now, she's not Jewish. Andrew Cuomo isn't Jewish. Eric Adams isn't Jewish. Vicky Palladino isn't Jewish. Donald Trump isn't Jewish. But they all are delighted to weaponize anti-Semitism, to weaponize Jewish.
This line will fire up progressives, but it also collapses complex motivations into villainy. It's emotionally satisfying, but politically lazy.
Fear against Muslims especially, but really against inclusive multiracial democracy, which in my opinion is what best keeps Jews safe. So yeah, this happened a lot during the campaign. Andrew Cuomo went into a synagogue and called Zoran and Adrian Adams, the black speaker of the city council, and me, Semitic. That brought out my cursing in Yiddish side, getaken affenjam, which is like go crap in the ocean, Andrew Cuomo. It's frightening right now. It's frightening to see those anti-Semitic attacks and feel fear. Then it's frightening to see that anti-Semitism weaponized to try to squash any speech in support of Palestinian human rights and safety and self-determination, and against Muslims here at home as well.
You mentioned Randy Fine a couple of times. There hasn't been a call for a censure vote. Why isn't Hakeem Jeffries calling for a censure vote?
He should be. Democrats, I mean, they don't have a majority of the House, but they can introduce legislation. So, I would encourage Speaker Jeffries. I would encourage Representative Goldman. I would encourage any Democrat to bring a censure motion and get co-sponsors. There were 22 Democrats who voted for, not just signed on to, who voted to censure Congressmember Tlaib. Let's see whether they will co-sponsor legislation to censure Rep. Fine.
Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries lead your party in the House and Senate. They're both fellow New York politicians. The poll shows more than 60% of Democrats want a change in the leadership of the party. Do you believe Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are the right leaders right now to fight back against Donald Trump and these extremist Republicans?
We've got time from now until next November to show what a Democratic Party can look like, how we can fight, what vision we can project before the 2028 presidential race really picks up, and then presidential candidates will be the one speaking for the party. So what I want to see until then from the leadership, but also from people who are running and members, is how are you going to stand up and fight Trump? Will you put your body on the line to protect your neighbors? Can you project a better economic vision? And how will you say hold us accountable? We
those
need
are
a
good
Democratic
questions,
majority.
but you didn't answer mine. Do you believe Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are the right leaders to fight back against Donald Trump and MAGA in this moment?
Look, they're the leaders right now we have to fight back against Donald Trump. I do want to see Hakeem Jeffries become the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And, I hope to be able to have my first vote in Congress in January of 2027 be to make him Speaker. But we also need a conference that will be bolder, that holds itself accountable, that holds its leadership accountable. The base is angry, and with good reason. Our democracy is precarious because our people are precarious and they're pissed off. We have to do better. And that isn't just fighting against Trump. That is fighting against a rigged economy and giving people some reason to believe that the Democratic Party is on their side and will actually deliver for them. It's a big challenge.
Brad Lander, running for Congress in New York's 10th District, thank you so much for your time.
And there you have it, folks. Another deep dive into the fascinating, frustrating, and often contradictory world of progressive politics. Brad Lander, like many on the left, talks a big game about fighting for the people, challenging the establishment, and delivering a bolder vision. But as we've seen today, when you peel back the layers of rhetoric, you often find a politician who's more adept at verbal acrobatics than at consistent, principled action. From painting an incumbent as out of step with vague progressive values, to the breathtaking double standard on fiduciary duty when it comes to divestment, to the classic political sidestep on his own party's leadership, it's a pattern we see far too often. It's easy to be a fighter when your opponents are clearly defined and safely outside your own political tent. It's much harder when the fight requires confronting uncomfortable truths within your own ranks, or making tough choices that might cost you political capital. What this interview really highlights is the struggle within the Democratic Party itself, a struggle between the pragmatic center and the ideologically driven left. And for voters, it's a crucial reminder to look beyond the slogans and the performative outrage. Ask the hard questions, demand consistency, because at the end of the day, flowery language and vague promises don't solve real problems. Action, consistency, and genuine courage do. So, what do you think? Did Brad Lander convince you he's the fighter New York needs? Or did you see through the political smoke and mirrors? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more unfiltered political commentary, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Your engagement helps us cut through the noise and bring you the truth. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and keep asking the tough questions.
Thank you.